The city of Springfield, Missouri, basked in the warm glow of a June evening in 1992. Graduation celebrations echoed through the streets, a symphony of laughter and hope. But as the night wore on, an unseen shadow crept across the town, ready to snatch away the joy and leave behind a mystery that would haunt Springfield for decades. Susie Streeter, a vivacious 19-year-old with dreams as big as her smile, had just crossed the stage to receive her high school diploma. Her mother, Cheryl Levitt, beamed with pride from the audience, her eyes glistening with tears of joy and the promise of a bright future for her daughter. As the ceremony concluded, Susie bid farewell to her friends, promising to meet them later at Cheryl's modest home for a small celebration. Little did they know that this would be the last time anyone would see them alive. The Levitt residence, a cozy single-story house on East Delmar Street, stood quietly in the growing darkness, its windows warm with light and laughter. Inside, Cheryl, Susie, and Susie's friend Stacy McCall were winding down from the day's excitement. The clock ticked past midnight, and the trio decided to call it a night. Stacy, who had planned to spend the night, changed her mind at the last minute, a decision that would haunt her for years to come. As Stacy drove away, the house fell silent, the last traces of celebration fading into the night. But something sinister was lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The next morning, June 7th, dawned bright and clear, oblivious to the horror that had unfolded in the quiet hours of the night. Janice McCall, Stacy's mother, arrived at the Levitt home, expecting to find her daughter. What she found instead was a scene that would chill her to the bone. The front door was unlocked, swinging open with an ominous creak. Inside, the house was eerily still, showing no signs of struggle or forced entry. Personal belongings lay undisturbed. Purses, cigarettes, jewelry, all left behind. It was as if Cheryl, Susie, and Stacy had simply vanished into thin air. Panic rising in her throat, Janice called the police. Within hours, the quiet neighborhood was swarming with officers and investigators. Among them was Detective Jack Hawthorne, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for solving the unsolvable. As Hawthorne surveyed the scene, his experienced eyes picked up on details others might have missed. The family dog, left behind and unharmed, whimpered in the corner. 3 sets of neatly folded clothing lay on the floor, as if their owners had changed before bed. In the bathroom, a damp washcloth hung neatly on the edge of the tub. Everything seemed to indicate a normal night, interrupted. But something felt off to Hawthorne. The scene was too perfect, too undisturbed. It was as if someone had carefully crafted the illusion of normalcy. As he delved deeper into the investigation, Hawthorne began to uncover a web of secrets and lies. Cheryl, it turned out, had recently broken off a tumultuous relationship. Her ex-boyfriend, a man with a history of violence, became an immediate person of interest. But as Hawthorne dug deeper, he found that the man had a solid alibi for the night in question. Susie, too, had her share of secrets. Friends revealed that she had been involved with an older man, identity unknown. Could this mysterious figure be connected to their disappearance? As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the case of the Springfield 3 became a source of fascination and fear for the entire community. Theories abounded, each more outlandish than the last. Some believed the women had run away, starting new lives under assumed identities. Others whispered of alien abductions or government conspiracies. But Hawthorne knew the truth was likely much darker and much closer to home. 6 months into the investigation, a breakthrough finally came. An anonymous tip led police to a secluded cabin in the Ozark Mountains, just a few hours' drive from Springfield. As Hawthorne and his team approached the dilapidated structure, the air was thick with tension and the promise of answers. Inside, they found evidence that someone had been living there recently. Food wrappers, discarded clothing, and a stack of newspapers, all featuring stories about the missing women. But the cabin's occupant was long gone, leaving behind only tantalizing clues. Among the debris, Hawthorne spotted something that made his blood run cold. A small gold locket, identical to the one Cheryl Levitt always wore around her neck. This discovery sent shockwaves through the investigation. It was the first concrete evidence linking the women's disappearance to a specific location. But it also raised more questions than it answered. Who had been living in the cabin? And why had they left in such a hurry? As the investigation intensified, Hawthorne found himself drawn into a dark world of underground criminal networks and long-buried secrets. He uncovered evidence suggesting that Susie may have unwittingly stumbled upon a local drug trafficking operation in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. Could this be the reason for the women's abduction? But as Hawthorne delved deeper, he realized that the truth was even more sinister. The drug connection was just a smokescreen, designed to throw investigators off the real trail. The true motive lay buried in Cheryl's past, in a secret she had kept hidden for decades. Years before, Cheryl had witnessed a brutal murder committed by a prominent local businessman. Fearing for her life, she had kept quiet, carrying the burden of her knowledge for years. But as Susie grew older, Cheryl had begun to consider coming forward with the truth. Unknown to her, the businessman had been keeping tabs on Cheryl all these years, waiting for the moment when she might pose a threat to his carefully constructed life. As Hawthorne pieced together this shocking revelation, he realized that the kidnapping was not a random act of violence, but a carefully orchestrated plan to silence Cheryl once and for all. The businessman, whose name Hawthorne now knew, had hired a professional to carry out the abduction. Susie and Stacy were simply collateral damage, in the wrong place at the wrong time. Armed with this knowledge, Hawthorne raced against time to bring the perpetrators to justice. But the businessman and his hired gun were always one step ahead, their resources and connections allowing them to stay just out of reach. As the investigation stretched into its second year, Hawthorne found himself consumed by the case, his personal life crumbling around him. His wife left him, unable to compete with the ghosts of 3 missing women. His colleagues began to whisper that he was obsessed, losing his grip on reality. But Hawthorne knew he was close to cracking the case wide open. He could feel it in his bones, taste it in the air. And then, on a cold February morning in 1994, everything changed. A maintenance worker at a local cemetery made a grisly discovery. 3 bodies, buried in a shallow grave beneath a newly installed mausoleum. Hawthorne arrived at the scene, his heart pounding with a mix of dread and anticipation. As the bodies were carefully exhumed, he felt a wave of nausea wash over him. There was no doubt in his mind. These were the remains of Cheryl, Susie, and Stacy. The discovery sent shockwaves through Springfield and beyond. For nearly 2 years, the community had held on to hope that the women might still be alive. Now, that hope was shattered, replaced by a desperate need for answers and justice. As Hawthorne pored over the forensic evidence, he uncovered a crucial piece of information that had eluded him until now. Traces of a rare pollen were found on the victim's clothing, a type that only grew in one specific location in the Ozarks. This detail led Hawthorne back to the abandoned cabin, where a more thorough search revealed a hidden cellar. Inside, they found irrefutable evidence linking the businessman and his hired killer to the crimes. With this new information, Hawthorne and his team launched a nationwide manhunt. For weeks, the pursuit dominated headlines, captivating the nation. Finally, in a dramatic standoff in a small town in Texas, the businessman and his accomplice were cornered and apprehended. As Hawthorne faced the men responsible for so much pain and suffering, he felt a mix of triumph and profound sadness. The case that had consumed his life for 2 years was finally closed. But at what cost? In the aftermath of the arrests, Springfield struggled to come to terms with the truth. The businessman, once a respected pillar of the community, was revealed to be a monster hiding in plain sight. His web of lies and corruption had touched countless lives, leaving a legacy of pain that would take years to heal. For the families of Cheryl, Susie, and Stacy, the resolution of the case brought a bittersweet closure. They had answers, but nothing could fill the void left by their loved ones. As for Hawthorne, the end of the investigation left him adrift. He had given everything to solve the case, sacrificing his marriage, his health, and nearly his sanity in the process. Now, with justice served, he found himself facing an uncertain future. In the years that followed, the case of the Springfield Three became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most seemingly idyllic communities. Books were written, documentaries filmed, each trying to make sense of the senseless. But for those who lived through it, the true impact of that fateful night in June 1992 could never be fully captured in words or images. It was a wound that would never completely heal, a mystery that would continue to haunt Springfield for generations to come. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of the city, the ghosts of Cheryl, Susie, and Stacy lingered, a reminder of lives cut short and justice long delayed. Their story serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the most horrifying monsters are not the ones that hide under our beds, but the ones that walk among us, wearing masks of respectability and trust. The Springfield Three may be gone, but their legacy lives on, a testament to the enduring power of truth and the relentless pursuit of justice. And in the end, perhaps that is the only solace we can find. In the face of such incomprehensible tragedy.